Okay, here we go. This is the longest video I've ever shot. I haven't seen it yet. I saw the trailer yesterday. It looks fantastic. Anyway, I'm about to tell you a crazy story. Through the course of telling the story, though, I leave out a key detail. So when you just hang out for the end of the video, at that point, I'll let you know a little bit more information about this wild scene, and then you'll understand why this was a heavy, heavy day. All right, and it involves a knife. All right, you ready to go? Here we go. Okay, my name is Cleave. Here we go. This will be the longest video I ever shoot. This is take 2 of this because I just rambled on and then the camera shut off and I looked at the time and I was halfway done with the story and it was 36 minutes. So I'm going to pare this down. I'm going to take out a bunch of stuff, arguments for and against or whatever. This is a knife video. It's not a battle song video. There's no flipping, but this is certainly a knife video. I was telling you guys a bunch of crazy stuff and whatever, but that's not imperative. What's imperative is the 2 points that I'm trying to make, and the one is that people should carry knives. This is my personal, I've carried a knife now for like 25 years at least. Every day, everywhere is kind of my philosophy. If I'm not going through a metal detector, I have a knife on me. And when people start to argue, oh, you're going to carry a knife, you're going to end up getting in trouble, blah, blah, blah. So I did calculations. My personal life, 25 years plus of carrying a knife, the odds are approximately 1 in 25,000 that you will have to pull a knife out for either to defend yourself or to, you know, get a bad guy or something, to use a knife in some context involving violence, as opposed to a utilitarian purpose of the knife, which is to cut something or pry something or whatever. You know, the knives are tools. First and foremost, sure, it's a cool thing that you can defend yourself with one, but that's like so rare, so completely rare that that's almost not even a valid argument. But I mean, but it is. It totally is, because it's, you know, they're cool. All right. So anyway, when people start to ask you why you carry a knife, just point them to this video. If they're going to give you any argument about it, have them listen to this story. So I've been carrying a knife for 25 something years. Last summer, I ended up in a position. I'm going to tell you the story. I ended up in a spot where the knife was the only thing that could do. You know, it wasn't going to be, a hammer wouldn't fix it, a gun wouldn't fix it. It was only having a cutting edge that was. I ended up saving a guy's life because I had a knife on me. So I went 25 years without, you know, necessarily really needing one, but the one day that I really, really needed it, I had it on me. So that is, you know, I recommend girls, guys, young, old, if you're old enough to carry a legal knife lawfully, then you should. Wherever you go, just have it with you. You're better off to, you know, you're always better to have it than not. Okay, so when people want to talk about carrying knives and whatever, that's the moral of this. The title of this video really is the luckiest day of my life. I've had a crazy, you know, I'm a fringe element of society. I've lived a pretty insane life. I really shouldn't be here, at least not with all my limbs still connected. But for me to tell you that this one thing was the luckiest day of my life, hands down, easily, man, please don't. I mean, it really, you'll understand. After this whole thing got over, after the whole thing got done, I was telling one of my buddies, I was like, you know, if you, when I was in the spot, if you had put a $400 million Powerball ticket in one hand and you put a knife in my other hand, man, you can kiss that ticket goodbye, man. I want the knife. I'll take that. And still to this day, that's, oh, definitely, you know, if I hadn't had that knife, I would not be here right now. I would be in a crumpled heap, still in a corner somewhere with a bunch of therapists talking to me. But okay, so the story is the luckiest day of my life, and I'm going to use this story to show you why it's important that you carry a knife. All right, so let's just get right to the story. So let's see, this happened last year, last summer. My son and I, well, let me tell you this real quick. So I used to build river rafts. I used to live in Flagstaff, and one of my jobs there, I worked in a small raft building company. There's only like 4 people. We built these things called duckies, which are inflatable kayak kind of canoe, 1-seater, 2-seater. We also built these big, you know, like Colorado River, Zambezi is what we call them, like 8-seater. But these duckies were these cool, you know, they're inflatable kayaks, so they are like have flexibility, but they're, you know, super whatever. They're just awesome. But so anyway, my point being, yeah, I used to build these things, so I know all about duckies, how they're constructed, what they're made of. This material right here is called Hypalon. You can't tear this stuff, you know. You're not going to rip this. It's built to not be ripped. So, all right, and so that's an important factor. Okay, so last summer, my son and I, Oscar, he was 11, I think, at the time this all went down. So we decided that we were going to go whitewater rafting. He had been, you know, mild whitewater rafting, but we were going to hit something a little bit more serious. So we booked a 2-seater ducky on Upper Nantahala. All right, so I've been Nantahala before, but not in a long time. But so anyway, so I was just stoked to be rafting with my son. You know, it was great. So we hopped in this ducky, and so I was in the back, and he was in the front, and so I don't know, let me just tell you quickly how the Upper Nantahala works. It's basically, there's 2 rapids you really got to worry about. There's the put-in, then you got a big flat water section, and then you come across the first rapid, which is basically the stream comes down, the river comes down, and it's split into like 2/3 and 1/3 by this big rock that sticks out of the water. It's probably about this big. It's like, I don't know, 10 feet long, and it's kind of like this diamond-shaped rock, but it divides the river, and what it does is it forces about half the water down through this little sluice, this like flume. The other half of the water goes on the far side of the rock. So as you approach this, you can take your choice. You can either go down a little bit of a waterfall, probably like about a, I don't know, 3-foot waterfall that's nice and smooth down that sluice to the left of the rock, or you can go kind of the easier way. The right-hand side is all flat. So once you get past this rock, then there's just a big rapids field. You know, it's just for a long ways. I mean, like, you know, 100 yards or something like that after the rock. Okay, so we're paddling up and we're talking about things. I'm telling him different things to watch out for, and we're working on synchronizing our paddling, and, you know, we're just going through, you know, typical, you know, stuff you do when you're getting ready to hit something a little bit serious. Okay, so we're coming up, and I'm scouting this thing, and I'm like, okay, let's go to the left. It looks like it's going to be more fun. It's not that sketchy of a rapid. I said, okay, let's go to the left. So here's the rock, and we come down, and we peel over, and we go right down the waterfall and right into the rapids, and, you know, we're bobbing along, and oh man, it's great. And so what happens is the river, there's a big rapid field, and then it makes a bend and it comes around, and there's like trees and stuff right here, bushes and stuff. So we come around this turn, and I pull us up onto shore. There's a rocky shoal right there. So I pull us up onto the shore, just paddle to it, and we stop because I want to talk to him about some things that, you know, we did right, things we did wrong. Okay, so we're sitting there. We sit there for like not even maybe 2 minutes. And we're sitting there talking about, all of a sudden this dude comes cooking around the corner in one of the little sport kayaks, you know, the flip, and this, you know, wetsuit, helmet. This guy comes barreling around, lands right next to me, and he goes, there's an old guy up the river, and he's in a bad spot. And I could tell, then he said, a bad spot. I could tell by the way that he said it to me, that what he was really telling me is that there is an older guy upstream that is actively dying as we speak, but he doesn't want my young son to be alarmed or freaked out. So this dude just lets me know. Okay, so I said, Oscar, land it. And so he hops out and pulls it on shore. I'm already in the water, so I jump off. I jump out of the boat. The water is about knee high here, right? And it's coming along pretty good. But the whole river bed is rocks, different size rocks, all round, some broken, whatever. I mean, but you know, it's just very uneven. So I start going as fast as I can and I keep thinking in my head, breathe and don't hurt yourself. Breathe, don't hurt yourself. So I'm trying to go fast, but not fast enough that I become another casualty in this thing, and now there's 2 evacs, and, you know, everything is compounded for the worst. So I'm like really focused on getting upstream through this force of this water while I'm breathing, and like, okay, so I go about 20 feet and I realize it is going to take me forever to go up around this bend and then up there. I'm like, I would be better off on the shore fighting through brambles and briars. I will get there faster doing that. So I cut over to the bank. I climb up the bank, and what do I see? There's a footpath runs all the way alongside of the river, of course. So I'm like, oh, thank God. So I'm already starting to be a little bit winded just from battling up the, and the adrenaline's already cooking. The water temperature that day was 47 degrees. All right. Now, from when I jumped out of the boat and started up the river, until the whole thing ended, the water temperature was a non-factor to me. It never even crossed my mind that the water was cold. I had so much adrenaline going. It was just, that wasn't even part of the equation. Okay, so now I'm going a lot faster up this thing, but I'm still thinking, don't get hurt, breathe. Don't get hurt, breathe. And then I start, the other wheel starts spinning. Okay, what am I about to encounter? So he said it's an old guy and he's in a bad spot. The first thing that pops into my head is heart attack. Okay, so I'm picturing, okay, dude has had a heart attack and they've landed the boat. Maybe they have him out of the boat on the shore. Maybe people are doing CPR. So in my head, as I'm going along, I'm going through CPR. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, CPR, CPR, CPR. So I come over this little rise. And what do I see? Well, it's not first what I see. What I hear is crying. There are women crying. I mean, like, I'm not talking about just crying. I'm talking death moans. I'm talking about, the end of the world kind of crying. You do not want to hear women crying like this. So I come around and bam, here is an older lady, two maybe middle-aged ladies, and there's like a little kid and maybe another guy. But I just mentally know, I don't really actually even look at them. I just pass them and they are just losing their minds. So at this point I say, what is going, I look up the river. What do I see? Okay, this is just almost, I mean, it could be worse, but what I saw, let me just describe this. So okay, so what has happened? Okay, there is another ducky, another two-seater ducky, all right? So these are flexible, right? I'm using this as just an example of a boat shape, but these are flexible things. Okay, so it's the old guy has been sitting in the back. There's actually a young kid sitting in the front of this. Okay, so what has happened is they have approached the rock, right? And then they have turned broadside to the rock just as they're reaching it. This is the worst way to hit anything in a river, because there's really only one thing that's going to happen. So they hit the rock, and immediately the upstream side of the boat starts catching water and it rolls on its side. Okay, so now apparently what's happened is the kid jumps up onto the rock. He jumps right out of the boat and right onto the rock. So he's just on the rock. When I look up, he is sitting at the base of the rock, holding himself together, not looking back. What has happened with the old guy, what happened is as they were approaching, he told me this later, as they were approaching, he saw they were going to smash into the rock, so he jammed his feet up under the thwart, or the baffle, that, so that a ducky has basically two pontoons on the outside, two inflatable tubes on the outside, and it's got two thwarts in the middle, which are basically inflatable kind of seats, but you're not supposed to use them as seats, really. One thing you're definitely not supposed to do is stick your feet or anything up under those, and for the reason I'm about to describe right here. So as they were as they hit the rock, he jammed his feet up under that thwart. The boat rolled over halfway and then folded to the outside, so that both ends now are going downstream. Okay, so the boat is folded in half around this rock. He has his feet jammed up under the thwart, so now his feet are basically pinned in between the rock and that thwart. And there is nothing that is getting this dude out of that. I mean, he's got the whole weight of the river coming into his boat, rushing over him, and his feet are locked beyond, I mean, his feet are not coming out. So he is almost upside down, because as the water comes around the rock, there's a drop off. You know, it's like I said, it's about a 3-4 foot drop off right there. So his boat is halfway wrapped around, facing down. So he's lying backwards down into this little waterfall, and the water is just pouring over him. He's using his core muscles to keep his head out of the water, to keep from drowning. And I come around the corner and I look up and I see the position he's in, and I know exactly immediately what is going on. All right, so that's what I came around the corner to discover. All right, so that was terrible. Okay, so I'm like, okay. Now, when I was growing up and spent a lot of time on the river, we did all kinds of river rescues. You know, like this was part of training for going out and doing some, you know, more hardcore stuff. We had to learn this stuff, you know. Well, so anyway, it's been, whatever, 20 years since I was, you know, on anything serious. Like this, Nanahill is not supposed to be serious, you know. That's why I'm there with my son. Okay, so this is where I make the classic whitewater rescue mistake. All right, and this is the mistake that almost cost that guy his life, and it would have just crumpled me as a human. I would be just a shell of a man had this guy died because I made this stupid mistake. Okay, so what happened is I'm still cruising, trying to breathe. I get up right parallel with him. Now this guy is so close. I mean, we have the stream, the half the river coming down through this little gap is only about 7 or 8 feet wide, right? And it's super powerful. But I look across, this guy, if he reaches out his hand, he's like this close to me. You know, we're like this far apart if he's reaching out his hand, right? So all I say is, I'm going to pull him. I'm going to pull him out. I put one foot down in the river, went down to about my knee. I swung the next leg around, and right then is when I knew I was down the creek without a paddle. That water grabbed me. I never touched the bottom. I don't even know how deep it is right there, but you got to figure half probably the water of the whole stream is coming through that little sluice right there, and nobody's walking across that. So anyway, the river swept me right off my feet. Now I'm gone. Okay, so now what I probably should have done here is to paddle back to shore, go way upstream, and execute an actual whitewater rescue, which is you get in the stream, way up the stream, and you float down to that person, paddling so you get perfect position, you don't expend all your energy, and then you just land right where they are. You know, you just swim to where they are, you just float down the stream to them. No, that's not what I did. Of course, I jumped in the water and got swept away. Right, so I should have paddled to the stream probably and gone and restarted, but that's not what I did. In my head, I know how rivers work, so I knew that behind that rock, in the center of the stream, there was going to be an eddy right here. There's also going to be deposit, right? Because that's how rivers work. The rocks get deposited in areas like that, so it's going to be gradual sloping down. Okay, so instead of swimming for the shore, I go into full attack crawl, most hardcore crawl stroke I've ever done in my life, fighting for the middle of the river. I gotta catch that eddy, you know. I'm getting swept past. I've got to catch this eddy. Well, I didn't catch the eddy. It was too much water. All right, so I'm burning. Now I'm down into where all the river has come back together, and I am low on energy. I try to stick my feet down to arrest so the water's only about this deep, you know, in the river at this point. I try to put my feet down. Water just knocks me back. I stick my feet down again. I can't get a grip. I keep getting washed back. Finally, about 50 feet away from the rock, I landed 2 feet, and with my weight forward enough in the river that I maintained position. I stopped. I arrested my downstream progress. So I was stopped, and that's all I could do. I was absolutely... Hang on, let me make sure this camera's still working. Okay, sweet. So I am frozen in this river. Now I am completely taxed at this point. I am physically, it is everything I can do to just hold this position against all this water. All right, and so the first thing I did was I tried to yell to the kid because what I wanted him to do was to take his paddle and place it across the raft, so the guy wouldn't have to just keep, using his stomach muscles to keep his head out of the water. He would have, if I could have told him that, he could put the oar there, the paddle there, and he could have held on, But I'm yelling against this river, which is going, and I am so out of breath that I can only say like one word per, put, and I realized, okay, not even worth it. So I just held up one finger. I said, wait. Okay, so at this point, I have no choice. I have to regroup, because there's no way I'm going to make it up that stream with the amount of energy I have left within me. Adrenaline aside, there is no way. I'm already completely maxed out. Okay, so I decided in my head I had to stop. In my head, I knew I was going to get washed down the stream. It was basically a guarantee based on where I was, how much energy I had left, how far I had to go. The obvious outcome was that I was going to make a misstep. I was going to get washed down the stream, and the guy was going to drown right there. So this is all going through my head as I sit there, and I'm just breathing and trying to get blood into my legs and catch my breath. So I sat there just stood in the stream in that position at least a minute, maybe 2 minutes. Okay, and then here's where the weird thing happened. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, there's no way. It's too much water on me. There's no way. I cannot. I have a manual labor job, thank the Lord, because if I didn't, I never would have pulled this off. All right, so I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm never going to make it. The guy's going to die. This is just a foregone conclusion, the spot I was in. So what happened, I told people later, it was the weirdest thing. If I felt like upstream, a lot of whitewater rivers are controlled by a dam. And they control the amount of flow, which means, it's either a raging river or a trickle or whatever it is. But it's controlled by a dam. I felt like there's like two guys up at the dam that morning, an hour earlier, 10 miles upstream. And then one guy just leans over and goes, hey, Charlie, shut off the flow. Just for like 10 seconds. And the dude's like, what? What are you talking? It's like, man, just shut it off for like 10 seconds, please. So, closes off the water flow. No water flow. 10 seconds. So, all right, go ahead and open it back up. So what happened, downstream is what I felt like. All of a sudden, the amount of pressure that was on me, it lessened. And it was a noticeable lessening. And I don't know how that is even possible. But that is exactly what I felt. And as soon as it happened, as soon as there was less water on me, my brain just went, go. And I took a step and I landed in, and then I took another step, and then here comes all the water again. But the thing was, I had made forward progress, so I didn't stop. And so now it's super hairy, because now it's the whole river, So I make another step. I make another step. At one point, I'll tell you this just real quick. The sketchiest point of this trek up the stream. At one point, I had these river shoes on. Super awesome river shoes. Not these. But at one point, I was posting forward on my left foot. And the way it worked out was there was a rock here, and I was on the very tip toe of this river shoe. My entire weight of the river on my body, everything, and me fighting forward was on my big toe and the toe right next to it. I pictured this in my head as though I could see it underwater. And in my head, while this one step was going on and everything hinged on that one little toe grip, it was just like, I just knew, if this grip fails, he's dead. That's just how it's going to be. But that grip held, and I landed my right foot, and it was just like, oh my Lord, that was so insane. And then I made another step, and I made another step, and so, all right, from a perspective, just a quick snapshot. The guy that's trapped in the raft, once I was swept away, he couldn't see me anymore. So, because he's kind of wrapped around the corner, the side of the rock and coming down into the waterfall, he can't see me trying to make it back up to him, right? He just saw me swept away, and now I'm in Tennessee at this point, So I keep going, and at some point, I keep going. All of a sudden, the rock started to come up, and then the water level was at my hips, my thighs, then it's at my knees, and then I'm at the rock. And here is this little boy sitting in front of me with tears just pouring down his face. So I stopped there for a second and got my breath. I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yep." I said, "You stay right here, don't move." So I climb up the rock. Now I am in a Twilight Zone episode because there is no possible way I have made it to this rock, right? It was literally, I mean, I don't know how that happened, honestly. All right, so I climb up over the rock and I look over the edge and I see that the dude is still there. I can't see him either. I don't know if he's died or, if he's drowned or anything. And I look over and he looks up at me, and you should have seen the look on this guy's face. And so we looked at each other and I said, are you injured? And he said, "No, I'm not injured. I'm just trapped." I said, "Okay. All right, I'm gonna get you out of here." And so the first thing I did, now I'm feeling strong. Now I'm feeling strong. Okay, so the way the boat was wrapped around the rock, most of the boat was kind of going down this way. So what I did was I got on the side that he was not on, and I posted up and I just hulked it. I was like, I'm just going to push this boat off and he's going to sail right on down. Well, what happened was when I started pushing it, I pushed it all the way out to what was the fulcrum of this the crux of this little pivot here. I pushed it all the way out to where I could tell all I had to do was put a couple more pounds of pressure and the raft would go. But the way it was going while I was pushing it, the raft was flipping even more and it was catching more water. And so what was going to happen, it was obvious, was that if I pushed him out more, the raft was going to flip upside down, send him upside down through the sluice, and then upside down with his feet locked in there through the rapid field. So that's a death ride, So I just slammed the thing back down. That was not going to happen, That's worst case scenario. That's not going to happen. So then I'm like, okay, all right. So let's see. All right, sweet. So anyway, so I'm like, what can I do? I'm looking at the baffle, his feet. I'm like, oh man, I got to cut him out. Oh, so while we were packing up that morning to get on the river, we're taking stuff out of our pockets and whatever. I pulled out my knife and I was like, not this knife, this knife. I pulled this knife out. This is what I was carrying that day, this knife right here. I pulled it out and I almost went to put it in my truck and not take it with me, but it was strange. I had this flash in my head of webbing, which we use on river rafts to tie stuff in. Super strong stuff. I had this vision of this purple webbing wrapped around someone's arm, and I saw that in my head, and I was like, wait, I got to take the knife, even if it falls out of my pocket and I lose it. Whatever. I've got other ones. I looked down. I happened to be wearing a pair of shorts that had a zipper pocket at the bottom. I was like, oh, okay, here we go. The knife's going to get wet, but at least I'll have it with me. Bam, slammed it in my pocket, zipped it up. So now, when I'm on there and I realize there's no way to get this guy's feet out, knife. I have my knife. Unzip my pocket, and there it was. I opened this thing, and I leaned over and I said, I'm going to cut you out. So get ready. He said, okay. So I knew the construction of the boat and I knew exactly what to do, so I punctured the thwart and I brought the knife around. The knife was so sharp it just went and I almost cut his foot, which would have been terrible. That would have been another major problem. And he goes, "Don't cut my foot." And I said, okay, I'm not going to cut your foot. So I cut about half the baffle and it did not release. This stuff is not letting go. So then I stuck the knife inside and I brought it back up. Still didn't let go. About that much hypalon is all that's holding him in this thing. So I stuck the knife down there. I said, okay, you're going to go this time. Spin around, get your feet out in front of you, take a big breath. You ready to go? He said, yep. And I went, and he slid right out, right down the waterfall. He spun around, stuck his feet out. He's floating on his back. This dude comes from out of nowhere, trucking up the shore, up the side. He's got a rope. He goes, rope, and throws this rope. It goes dead across this guy's chest. He grabs the rope, slings him right to the shore. So anyway, then okay, so that's basically that's why you carry a knife right there. The rest of the story before this battery dies. So then once he was out, the boat was actually free and it started to float away. I grabbed onto the boat. I said, "Kid, get in." So he got in, I got in. We didn't have, the paddle had gone or something. I don't know what actually happened to the paddle at some point. But we got in the boat with no paddle, went down that rapid, and then almost flipped over, which would have been terrible. Anyway, we got down super low going through the rapids. We paddled to the shore, get over to the shore. He landed, I told him, land the boat. I went trucking back up to where the dude was, and he is sitting there. Okay, sorry, my battery died. I gotta wrap this up. Okay, so anyway, I come trucking back up, and the dude is sitting right on the bank. He's just sitting there, no problem. Almost everybody there is crying. It is a just complete. It was just surreal. I asked the dude, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm perfectly fine." And then a minute later, he's talking about going ahead and putting the boat back in and then finishing up the river. I was like, "Oh my Lord, you are crazy. You really you need to relax." And then one of the ladies was like, "Aren't you cold?" And then everybody realized, oh man, he's going to be hypothermic. You know, he's definitely, his core body temperature's got to be way down. So we got him laid out on this sidewalk looking kind of thing, out in the sun, got him dried off, and yeah, he ended up hiking up and getting a car ride back to the you know, where you get the rent the rafts or whatever. But anyway, he came away fine. Everybody came away fine. And so now, I told you guys this was a super heavy deal for me, and the reason is, I told you I was at the beginning I was going to leave something out of this story. All right, so here's the detail, not a minor detail, that I have left out of this whole story while I was telling you this, and this is why this is so heavy. So when I jumped, originally the kayaker came around and said, "Hey, this guy's in trouble." I jumped out and I went trucking up. When I came around that corner, the three ladies that were standing there crying, that was my mom, my wife, and my sister. And that was my little nephew, was the boy that was there. My brother-in-law was somewhere there. The little kid out on the rock, trapped out there, that was my other nephew. And the guy in the boat that was stuck was my dad. So, glad it worked out. All right, there you go. Carry a knife.